Hello and welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Now, today's Times Cryptic had a very high SNITCH rating. This is a score that it's given to rate its hardness by quite a large number of regular solvers who submit their times and the times that it has taken them. And then that gets compiled automatically now into a SNITCH rating. And Simon noticed it was extremely high today and told me to record my solve. So I did that, and I shall now talk you through my solve of a very difficult times puzzle, which is quite useful practice as the championship this year is only 2 weeks away. And I think we can expect that at the very least, the final puzzle there is going to be very hard like this. So I opened up the puzzle, had a look at one across, refusing to give in the end natural. Well, in the end looks like an indicator for the last letter of a word, but in fact it's not, so I couldn't solve that one. Moved quickly on to 2 down. Sorry, I've just paused here. If you want to see whether I'm paused or not, you can look at the time up here. 2 down, ferries go so far and do not interfere with each other. We often see ferries mentioned in context of row, an abbreviation for roll on, roll off, but that's not appropriate here. But the 233 indication with hyphens, ferries go so, is in fact the definition. How do ferries go? Well, they go back and forth or to and fro. So how does that work with far and do not interfere with each other? Well, it's an anagram of far and do not, and that gives us to and fro. So if they kind of interfere with each other and mess around, that's what you get. Had another look at one across, still not really sure what natural can be doing in the clue. Had a look at 10 across, person looking round briefly to a null or lower offer. Now, I mean, that's an incredibly hard clue, it's an incredibly hard answer. No shock that I wasn't getting that at this stage. I think I had a look at 12 across. I always like to use the letters that I do get in the grid. A bit of late drama as pacifist is speaking out. Speaking out looks a bit like a homophone indicator, and a pacifist is always interested in peace. I had to wonder whether there was an anagram of pacifist and one of the 2-letter words around it, but that didn't work. Now, 15 across, projecting course with appreciative exclamation. I was really very pleased with how quickly I got this, because I think it's one of the more elusive clues here. Somehow, from projecting course, I got the idea that it might be a sort of architectural projection. And when I thought of one that fitted this space, luckily I could see that it also provided a sort of appreciative exclamation, which is actually core, nice, which put together gives you coreness. I mean, it's a very clever clue. I would normally say that's very difficult. I was delighted to crack that quickly. So 3 down, I was just wondering if I'd had an idea. Shift working interrupted by large strike. Well, working could be on at the end of that, and some word for shift followed by on, interrupted by L or maybe LG for large and meaning strike. I had the right idea, but I couldn't get it immediately, so I moved on till I could get further help and had a look at 13 down with a C in there. Now, here we go. Relish film about boxer, badly brought up. The key there is to pick out the definition, which is relish. So, although it's a verb in the apparent meaning of the clue, I think that means it's even more likely than usual to be a noun. So I was looking for a 10-letter type of relish with a C, 3rd letter, and I was wondering about Ali as the boxer and ill as badly, maybe being reversed for brought up, and indeed that probably helped steer my mind towards the correct answer, which is piccalilli. And the way that the whole clue works is film is pic, about is CA, an abbreviation for circa. Oh no, about is C, the abbreviation for circa. Then you get Ali, the boxer, and ill reversed, and the whole thing is piccalilli. 15 down, visible split in chest or short split in coupe. I wasn't getting that at this point, but it is kind of available with that C and the visible split in chest if your mind is prepared to work that way. 16 down, I couldn't do this either. Lemurs call when encountering shadow. I don't know what a lemur can be doing in a puzzle. It certainly doesn't have a short call that I'd be expected to know. 21 across, bird to take home picked up from trap. Well, earn is to take home, so I was wondering about whether the answer could be earn, but it's not at the beginning or end of the clue like a normal definition. Maybe I was thinking turn, and there's some sort of homophone thing going on, but I passed on it for now. Should maybe have spent a little bit more time working out what the answer might be. 7-1, a very appealing enumeration here. What phrase is a 7-letter word followed by a 1-letter one? Checking shortcuts using vision aid. So I was wondering, I must be looking for some sort of spectacles thing or a TV viewer or something. No idea what was going on. Couldn't work that out at all. Probably should have done. Again, should have really focused on the 7-1, but I didn't and carried on. I spent some time just studying that clue and seeing what it might be giving me. There's quite a lot of words in it that could be indicators of placements as well as meanings. So 26, old pantomime actor threatening odd couples in Aladdin. Now, what are the odd couples of letters in Aladdin? I felt that's what that meant, but I didn't quite know how to pick out the odd couples. I'm not sure I was going to know an old pantomime actor. So really struggling in a way, despite that nice cornice solve, only 3 words done in 2.5 minutes. Sometimes I'd have most of the puzzle done at this point. So not feeling great about how this is going here. And a large time looks like it's on the cards. Went back to the clue about the pacifist. A bit of late drama. I've got a P in this as well now, and there aren't many words that fit. Not even sure I know the word that is the answer, but the P and pacifist wanting peace was very suggestive. So I thought, what could it be that ends in P-I-E-C-E, a homophone of the peace a pacifist wants? Well, there's probably a thing called an afterpiece, which would be a late bit in a drama. And as pacifist is after peace. A pacifist is seeking peace, so he's after peace. Speaking out, that could be spelt that way. Very tough clue, I think, as well. 5 down, dancers, very visual awareness directed upwards. Well, we're near Christmas. I immediately thought about the reindeer, but that's irrelevant. So, do I know many dancers? Only 1 or 2, but what dancer could I be expected to know? Well, Nureyev fits, and there's a V in his name that could be very. And indeed, if you then put V-I run upwards, visual awareness is I, and directed is run, which can be a past tense as well, or a past participle, as well as a present tense. You reverse all that by sending it upwards for a down clue, and you do get Nureyev. So he's in the puzzle. 6 down, did well on this one, I think. Psychologist fellow mistreated bird. Well, mistreated is such a clear anagram indicator. Surely the only thing in the clue that can be anagrammed is fellow. I don't know many psychologists, but again, I don't think the Times is going to expect me to know many psychologists. And once I'd anagrammed fellow into something that included a bird towards the end of this, then one of the few psychologists that I know did suddenly become possible. Jung and the anagram of fellow gives us jungle fowl. Now, 9 across, items plucked from French article, repeatedly probing transatlantic allies. I couldn't really see what this was getting at. Is a French article because it represents the word a. But I couldn't see how repeating that in this was going to help. And indeed, that was being on the wrong track. You do need an article in the sense of a definite or indefinite article, but not 11 across. taxi sent with gear as a favour. Well, those 4-letter words are very suggestive that you need to mix 2 of them up. Must be gear because of the G in the answer. So I spent a little time trying to get a taxi out, or as a favour, out of an anagram of sent and gear. But then I worked out that I could get a phrase meaning as a favour out of taxi and gear. Sent is kind of the anagram indicator for driven wild. And as a favour, there is a Latin phrase which is ex gratia, which means out of generosity, if you like, or as a favour. 17, couldn't understand that, and we'll come back to that. 22, despot, employing muscle, hence someone pulling the strings. I was thinking about puppets for that, but I couldn't really get very far. A despot with an A might be Armin, I thought, but not necessarily. Some empty praise offered up for one that's been let down. Well, that's quite an interesting one. Now, one that's been let down was very useful. With this 4-4 and that T, I did immediately think of a puncture or a flat tyre. And I could see that it could be kind of flattery would be the empty praise. I think the way that the clue works is, unlike my typing, which is very poor here again and again, is that it's saying some of the phrase meaning empty praise or flattery has been offered upwards. So the last 3 letters have been reversed, and that gives us one that's been let down. It's a very vague and difficult way of cluing that, but I was very confident that was the answer. Now, fugitives, I could immediately think, as you can see, of a word that fitted with that A for fugitives. Better could be the cap within escape, and if that is stopping or kind of plugging the close to trouble, which is E, and a word for spots, which is C's, then we can get the escapees, who in this case are the fugitives. Now, back to 9 across. Items plucked. Not much is going to fit this letter pattern. And suddenly when I thought about plucked, I realized that we could be talking about plucking strings of a musical instrument. And one of those does fit here, and that's ukuleles. Now, how's that made up from the word play? We've got le as the French article, repeatedly, le, and it's plugging or probing, put into transatlantic allies, UK, US, which is a lovely construction. I think that's really well done. Now on to the person looking round briefly. I was thinking about a kind of fatty for a person looking around. I've seen that sort of clue before, but it wasn't that. In fact, the person looking in that clue is somebody doing some gazing, or a gazer. Briefly to annul is undo without its last letter. And that whole word, gesunder, if you don't know what that is, and it wouldn't be a surprise, it's a kind of low offer on a house. So when somebody's accepted the price of a house and somebody else comes in and nicks it off them by offering a lower price, that's called doing a gesunder. And the offer itself is a gesunder, which is kind of a weird back formation from gazumping, which was a practice of selling to a higher bidder that the house price, that the house owner would sometimes do. Anyway, detective, that's a DS in this case, going after taking too many, which is OD for overdose, and chances is odds. And then we got back to 1 across, where the end turns out to be the stub of something, like the stub of a check or a cigarette. Natural is born, and refusing to give is the definition of the answer, stubborn. 14 across, I would actually class this as a relatively easy clue. The word ditch cheeky Dadaist exhibits upon reflection. Exhibits upon reflection immediately shouted to me it could be a backwards hidden, and there in the phrase cheeky Dadaist hidden, backwards is dike, which is a ditch, as in that's a sort of country usage, I think. Now, Here's 17 across. Quickly for one round, the 3 of spades is played. Looks like it's a bridge or whist reference, but it really is anything but. In fact, we'll come back to that in a bit, and I'll tell you from now that the definition is actually quickly for one, and you'll need to be literarily well informed to even understand that. I don't think I could solve that immediately at this point. And what did we move on to next? Time ticking away here, but half the puzzle done in 6 minutes, and so some hopes of coming in under 10 minutes at this point. A needleworker at 18, seamster would fit, but I'm not even sure if that's a word in the masculine. I couldn't see how it applied. Now, 19. Paraded with a Yankee in a band all round. Well, Yankee is the International Phonetic Alphabet code sign for a Y. So if we put AY into something to mean paraded, well, I did think immediately of the word sashayed, and in a band could be sashed all round AY. So that's quite a useful, completely cold solve. Now back to Quickly, and what you need to know is that Mistress Quickly is an innkeeper or landlady in Shakespeare, in 2 plays, I think, including The Merry Wives of Windsor. And what fits there? Not mistress, obviously, but hostess. And that's made up of an anagram of round being O, the, THE, and 3 lots of S, which can stand for spades. Very tricky clue. Really hard. Now, the despot employing muscle, hence someone pulling the strings. Well, none of my previous thoughts seem to work, so I was wondering, could despot be the definition? And maybe, at this point, I think I thought of absolutism and absolutist. Oh, it looks like it didn't. Looks like I'm moving away. But absolutist is the answer there, with the muscle being an ab, so being hence, and someone pulling the strings, a bit like the plucking the ukuleles. That's a lutist. Here, 25, couldn't make much of that. 27, sorry, I'll just stop this and hopefully we'll be able to read the clue, which actually says depression and fuss with men getting in a state. So I'm immediately thinking of ado for the fuss, and if I'm looking for a state, well, Colorado has ado at the end of it. Now, we don't have something for color, the American term COLOR, but we do have a depression, which is a col. So col and ado, with men getting in. OR is a military abbreviation for other ranks, or the ordinary men. So that is Colorado. 20 down now, it ends in a C. It is a cat, mostly mistaken for a type of lion. Asiatic is an anagram of most of the phrase, it is a cat, i.e. not last letter. 24 down, case for English port. I couldn't think of what that would be getting at the moment. But that S from Asiatic is going to help with the absolutist, which I could now come up with. As I say, ab plus so plus lutist gives us that. 18 down is the needleworker. Now that looks like something that could be a needleworker, a tattooer now. Cheers is tar, dry is TT for, what's that for? For a teetotal. And then, hilariously, reaction to double entendre is ooer. You probably have to be very British to understand that, but it just is. 25 across. Pulled hard, leg of the setter about taxonomic term. Well, one taxonomic term that I learned only a year or 2 ago is, I was immediately thinking this might end in nym, a name within a taxonomic classification. And I suddenly thought of this word that I'd learned, tautonym, which works quite well because pulled, actually, what is it? I was thinking that we had taut being something pulled, tense as it were. Leg of the setter, yes, on is leg, which is a cricket term, and of the setter, about, gives us YM, because of the setter is my, because the setter is writing the clue, and if you turn that about, you get YM, it's reversal. So that's taught in him. Back to 24 after that, case for English port, a double definition of hull, which can be the case of something, and is of course an English port. Now, what can end in A as the single word in 7-1? Didn't get it immediately. I mean, it should have been fairly obvious to me. But 26 across. Now, the old pantomime actor, I could suddenly, with those letters, think of Grimaldi, who's a kind of former clown, I think. Grim for threatening, and then the odd couples in Aladdin were the first pair of letters and the third pair of letters in it. So, Grimaldi. And then this visible split in chest at 15 down turns out to be a cleavage, which is quite amusing. Or short split in coop, which is leave without its last letter in cage. On to 16 down. I couldn't still do that. I should have been able to, but I couldn't. But 21 across now, beginning with an E, and I wanted earn before. And now I finally realised that as well as turn, there's another bird, which is ERNE, the sea eagle, earn, which sounds exactly like earn if you picked it up from somebody speaking with their mouth, or trap. So now with the V, I can at last do this phrase, which is vitamin A. And I think what's going on there is taming, shortened, cutting into via, which is defined as using. Why is vitamin A a vision aid? Because it reputedly helps your eyesight. That's a quite clever bit of defining going on there. And then finally, 16 down looks now in the grid like ringtail, and that's ring for call, to make a phone call, and that is encountering to shadow or tail someone. So a puzzle just done under 10 minutes, 9 minutes 57 seconds. And all that remained to do was check that the Times was agreeing I'd got it all correct. I was pretty confident there wasn't anything that could have been wrong there. So all done in 9 minutes 57, and that was a pretty good time for today. That's a really difficult puzzle. Don't worry if a lot of that meant very little to you, but if you did get some of those, especially if you got them before I did, well done. That's a really tricky puzzle in my view. So thanks very much for watching, and hope to see you again soon on Cracking the Cryptic. Bye for now.